I'm going to be using the terms coactive leader and leading coactively interchangeably. And what I'd like to do is discuss two aspects of coactive leadership. One of which is what I'm going to refer to as the orientation of a leader. And what I mean by orientation is, according to us here at CTI, we talk about coactive leading from the point of view of 5 dimensions. The dimensions being leading from within, leading from in front, leading from behind, leading from beside, and leading from the field. So leading from within, effectively, that's an orientation that's always present. Whether you're, another thing to just put in here is, we also believe everyone is a leader. So I'm going to be talking about leadership both from a formal and an informal point of view. And so whatever the circumstance of you leading, whether it be formal leading or informally, or just even virtually hanging around with yourself, you're always going to be leading from within, and so being attentive to within. Leading from beside is going to be more in keeping if you're working with colleagues, peers, and so that you're working in concert with someone else, and you're going to working at leading from beside that person. Leading from in front is what I would refer to as the more traditional hierarchical leadership, where the individual leading virtually has the mandate and authority to lead from in front, and the followers in some way the followers are it's implied that the followers are following the leader who's leading from in front. Leading from in back references the times where, as a leader, you might be more in a supportive role. Could be in terms of you're leading from the point of view of developing others or coaching others. And then finally, leading from the field is references being attentive to the environment. It could even be leading from your own emotional field, your psychological field. That's from the within. It could also mean, if you're in a group of people, it's being aware of what's the energy of the group and picking up and leading from that energy that will inform how you lead and how you show up. So those are the dimensions of leadership, and that's what I mean by orienting to any one of those dimensions, or sometimes all of those dimensions. The other aspect of leadership that I also want to talk about, of course, is the whole reference to coactive. What does it mean to be coactive? What does it mean to lead coactively? Coactive, the term virtually means the being side of the equation, virtually your presence, how you show up in the world. And the active is what you actually do as a leader, the actions that you take. The co-and-active, when they're spelled out, there's a hyphen in between, and the hyphen virtually represents that what coactive is about is it's a representation of both the being and the doing, and that the hyphen implies and means that you can't have one without the other. So to be a coactive leader, you have to be aware of both aspects of leading. The key to coactive is what I like to refer to as the foundational coactive model. And the model is something that I think is quite brilliant. It has a lot of different moving parts, and the brilliance of the model is much more to do with how those parts all fit together genuinely from the point of view of the whole is incredibly greater than the sum of the parts. One of the key aspects of the model are the cornerstones. And in particular, there's the cornerstone of naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. For me, from a leadership point of view, what that means is a person who's leading from naturally creative, resourceful, and whole, there's actually a duality to that. First and foremost, they're showing up from the point of view that they are creative, resourceful, whole. That they have the ability to lead, the capacity to lead, that they lead with the confidence of knowing that they're creative, resourceful, and whole. By the same token, that leader is also engaging others as if they are creative, resourceful, and whole. And so it's very much, for me, the way that shows up in leadership. It's about a leader who interacts with people with respect and dignity, that they are human beings who are creative, resourceful, and whole. The other elements, the cornerstones in particular, which is sort of the foundation of the model, includes the cornerstone of evoked transformation, dancing in this moment, and of course the whole person. I just want to comment on the evoked transformation. For me, it's very tied into the cornerstone of creative, resourceful, and whole. Because we are creative, resourceful, and whole, we have the capacity to transform. And one of the things that I think is most transformative about coactively leading and coactive leadership is the transformation that takes place when you engage someone who is 100% creative, resourceful, and whole. It's been my experience that oftentimes, because of the unconscious inner critic, inner judge, or what we refer to as the saboteur, that people actually are often in the world with a sense of feeling inadequate, less than, that there's something wrong with them. And they unconsciously feel that way, and they act accordingly. What's really transformative is when they're engaged by someone who doesn't see them that way, doesn't engage them that way, engages them as being creative, resourceful, and whole. And again, part of my experience is when you engage someone as creative, resourceful, and whole, oftentimes they respond accordingly. And that in and of itself is incredibly transformative. So the other elements are that as a coactive leader, you want to be nimble and flexible. In this day and age where the pace is incredibly fast and diverse, you really don't really know or can't predict what's going to show up in any given moment. So as a leader, you have to be willing to engage the world, engage your role with dancing in this moment in a way that's incredibly adaptable and being nimble and flexible. And of course, the whole person goes hand in hand with naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. But engaging people, one, recognizing these are human beings, that implies that heart, body, and mind, all three are important: body, mind, spirit. Also, recognizing that a person is not just the employee, if it's in the corporate instance, but that they're a human being. They could be a mother, a father, a son, a daughter. They have all kinds of roles, and to engage them accordingly. The other aspects of the model that are really critical is what we call the context. These are always present. One of the things that they include, which is all about how to lead in a way that's coactive, is being incredibly attentive. So we talk about listening in a way of where are you putting your attention as a leader? And a coactive leader is very much orienting, remember the leading from various dimensions, being oriented to the audience and really being attentive to other. And what that means is paying attention certainly to what they're saying, but also being aware of what's going on with this person as they are saying what they're saying. What's their affect like? What are they? What's going on underneath the words? Virtually the essence of the person as you're in communication with them. Having said that, it's only human to also be attentive to self. So one of the things from a coactive leading point of view is, yes, you're attentive to yourself, but by the same token, you're attentive in a way that you realize that if your inner self is getting in the way of being attentive, then you self-manage. And that's the other context that I wanted to refer to, is the context of self-management. As a leader, it's important that you self-manage in a way that you are attentive to, again, the attentiveness. You know the impact you want to have. And as you're being attentive, if you're not having that impact, then you have to self-manage how you're being. Self-managing could be holding back, or it actually could mean stretching out beyond what you're comfortable with. So those are the two that go very much hand in hand. Another element that I think is a magical element virtually in itself, although it's very simplistic, the element of curiosity, or the context of curiosity. When you lead coactively, when you are coactive, you're leading from curiosity. And what that means is engaging the world, engaging people from a genuinely, wow, what's going on with that person? What's so special about this is, in my experience, most people, instead of leading with curiosity, they actually lead with judgment and criticisms. And typically, in engaging others, they're automatically judging them, whether they like them, whether they don't like them, whether they agree or don't agree. And what happens is it starts to become very opinion-based as to whether you like or don't like, black or white, etc. Leading with curiosity is leading with a whole new world where virtually you're genuinely engaging them with curiosity in a way that's inviting these people into being led by you if it's from a leadership point of view, or being engaged by you. The other element or the other context that's important is the notion of intuition. It's part of the being attentive to self, is recognizing every so often, and sometimes it can be spontaneous, but somehow or other you have a thought or an image or something comes up in the course of leading or engaging someone else. And so as a coactive leader, you virtually you give yourself permission to also lead from your intuition. And here's what's critical. If you lead from intuition, but you still lead with curiosity, then it doesn't matter whether or not the intuition is accurate. What's important is you don't be attached to it, and you don't judge it or interpret it. Finally, the last context, which I like to refer to as what is the value proposition. You'll notice that a lot of what I've described so far really is about the aspect of how you show up in a way that you're attentive, in a way that you're curious, in a way that you're self-managing, and even allowing yourself to blurt your intuition, which is more active, certainly. The context is referred to as deep in learning and forwarding action. And for me, it's almost like the key aspect of leadership, and why I call it the value proposition, is virtually my role as a leader is the impact that I'm having. Have I deepened learning? Have I forwarded action? In my role as a coach, for example, one of the things that I'm always gauging and working with my clients is, as a result of my session, are they walking around, out of the session having deepened their learning and or forwarded their action? Because if they have, that's the value that they've derived from working with me. From a leading point of view, the deepening learning is vital. I think that the orientation, certainly, I'll speak for North America. I think it's not only exclusive to North America, but here the culture is very much an active doing, and there's huge value been placed on the doing of things and getting things done, and I think that's really important. However, more often than not, what seems to be happening is it's from the point of view of ready, fire, aim. And so the aiming is left aside. For me, deepening learning is about really the piece of generating clarity. Helping someone get really clear, or if you're working with a group or an organization, clarity about where am I now, where do I want to get to, and then of course how do I get there. And what I'm going to link it to creative, resourceful, and whole. My experience, both for myself and for others, is, and I'll speak for myself for a moment, that when I have such clarity of what exactly is needed right now, and a clear understanding of where we are and what's needed, with that kind of clarity, it's almost automatic that the action will follow, or I know what action I need to take. And because I have such clarity, it's almost like I'm compelled, I want to take the action as opposed to having to take the action. And so that's an important aspect of leading coactively, is that the leading is done in a way that people are inspired by you, they're moved by you, and because you've led in the way that you have, they want to follow you. They want to do what you are directing them towards, or how you're guiding them, or the vision that you've generated alongside them. So those are the elements. That the one last piece is what we call the designed alliance. Again, it's something that is quite obvious and yet both brilliant and incredibly neglected. For me, what leading as a coactive leader, designing alliance, it means that in any interaction, in any engagement that I have, I'm going to ensure that we have an explicit conversation about how do we want to be with each other, what are my expectations, what are your expectations of me, and what do we do in the event that we don't agree on something or that things aren't going okay, or how do I deliver feedback? What's virtually being explicit about clearly defining what is my role in this interaction, what is your role in this interaction. Again, in my work as an executive coach, I've often worked with an executive who's very frustrated with the behavior of an individual. And I'll say to them something like, hopefully with curiosity, so have you talked to them? What have you said to them about it? I can't tell you how many times I've been told, it's very spontaneous and rather reactive, well, why should I talk to them? They should know better. And that's what happens when you don't have a designed alliance, and when you don't realize you don't have a designed alliance and recognize that you have to design an alliance or maybe even redesign the alliance. And the other thing that I also know is you've got to be really careful that no feedback is a form of feedback. And oftentimes what people will take away, if you don't say anything to them, if you don't explicitly design with them, everything must be okay because no one's saying anything. So those are the elements of the components of the coactive model. And the last thing I'd like to close with is just think about the kind of leader that you would encounter who engages you as being someone who's creative, resourceful, and whole, fully capable, is attentive to you, is interested in you, doesn't make it all about themselves and their ego, but makes it as much about you, that is constantly working with you to improve yourself, to improve the organization, to deepen your learning and or forwarding their action. And in particular, put it all together and talk about evoking transformation. Imagine what the world would be like if it was a coactive world where parents were coactive with each other, they were coactive with their children, where teachers are coactive with their students, leaders are coactive with their employees, politicians are coactive with each other. Imagine a country that's coactive. And think about what kind of a country would that be? What kind of an experience would you have in your life if you lived it coactively, if you led coactively, in whatever role of leadership you have? And so bottom line, that's the work of CTI, and the work is to transform the world so that it becomes a genuine coactive world.